Aw.
This is the pond at the Hinsdale house. This pond has an incredible history with the Dandy family, and with everyone actually. Originally, the barn that went with the farmhouse was here. And in 1969, the owners of the land decided they were going to put in a pond. So what they did is they pushed the barn right in, dug a hole, buried it, pushed the foundation in, got a bulldozer in here and pushed up the dirt to create the banks of the pond. The pond was, I think, not supposed to be here. It belonged with the house. It should have stayed with the house. And we have the residents that are making a loud noise to us, which are the geese that occupy this area. But the pond itself has a lot to do with the Dandies. Alex Tanis really led us on an interesting observation on his behalf. He got into the crawl space of the house and came back out, and Father Al asked him, "Alex, what did you find?" And he said, "The attic is stacked to the rafters with bones." Clara's dog was bringing home bones. An individual that I ran into by accident lived in this house for 10 months in 1983, which was about 9 years after the Dandy family had moved, and her dog was bringing home bones. So I called Clara in Oregon, where she lives, and I also got a hold of Kim out in Harbor Creek, Pennsylvania. And I said, "Do you know where your dogs got the bones from?" And they both said they didn't know each other, they lived in the house. That was their only meeting or joint thing, was that they lived in the same building at different times. But they said yes, the dogs dug them out of the banks of the pond. Rather interesting compared to what Alex had to say in 1973 about the attic being stacked to the rafters with bones. And we have a story about the Stagecoach Way House, which is just a stone's throw from here. And he also had an incredible vision of that place. There was a tree there that was called the Hanging Tree. And he said there was a woman that was hung in this tree by the people that ran the Way House. And she was pregnant at the time, and it was just a bad situation. They hung her in the tree. The problem with that was we ended up with a picture. I didn't personally, but I have seen the picture of a specter hanging from the limb that used to cross the road, and off to the side was a small little specter. And I literally almost came unglued. I said Alex Tanis was absolutely correct in what he saw. So, those people being what they were thieves. It was not good. It was like highway robbery back in the mid-1800s. They had no regulation, so they did what they felt they could do. If they really kidnapped individuals, or all of a sudden they were missing, you would obviously expect there would be follow-up from a family member saying, "Where are they at?" Well, they would always say, "Yeah, they were here, but they left." They left because they just went down the road. And our guess is that crawl space in the house was used to keep people. Then, when the Dandies bought the house, they looked in that crawl space, and there was a red brick fireplace. Over the time frame, Laura, which has the room right next to the crawl space, complained to her mom and dad that she heard bricks being dragged. So they finally gave up on listening to the daughter, and they opened the crawl space, and here was all of the bricks of the fireplace stacked in the middle of the room.
Look, I haven't moved from
Yes,
here.
mm-hmm.
There's nothing.
And what'd you see again?
I saw it was a red light, a glowing red light just now. It went from red to green, red, green, red, green, and then it just faded. It was right here, as though it was within the brush right here, while you were shooting that last shot. And I'm looking now, and I'm not seeing anything. I was wondering what was on the other side of the brush. Michael, you were saying there's nothing back there.
An old apple orchard.
Huh.
But this particular place is the place where the children, when they were in swimming, Laura and her girlfriends were swimming in here. And on this area, they saw this haggard woman with a long dress and stringy hair. And it scared them half to death. And all of the girls that were swimming at the time got out of the water and said, "Laura, you've got to get out of the water. Look what's over there." And she turned to them, and she had her big eyes, and she just said to her friends, "It doesn't matter, because I'm not going to live to be very, very old." And as it turned out, she didn't live to be very old. This particular place on the property has some interest to me. When we first met Joe Misnick, there were two others with us, and he allowed himself to be interviewed. So while those people were interviewing him along the side of the pond, I walked back this way. And I got right to this point, and I just felt a presence. So I stopped, I said a brief prayer, and I said, "If there's anything that I can do to help you move on, or to help you do what you need to do, please let me know." And at that point, my K2 meter lit up and started squawking. And I'm going, okay. So I turned around, and we walked this way. And I walked all the way around to the side. The K2 meter at that point stopped. When it stopped, I stopped. I turned around and came back the same way that I came. It picked up again. I got back to the starting point, it stopped, I turned around with my 35mm camera and took a picture from where I just walked. And that picture shows that tree with about 40 orbs streaming out of the sky towards the pond. It is an incredible picture, and when you see it, you will understand what this land has and what it may be trying to tell us. And that's the key for everything, is what is this land really trying to tell us? I think if we can understand that, we can understand the phenomena that happened here. This is actually one of the first sites that I did any infrared digital video with. This place I did set up my camera at one of the early evenings after we had permission to be on the land. And I set my camera up here, shooting actually at this direct same angle. And what I caught during that whole segment was an orb that started from this spot. It went across the pond and just disappeared. It like disappeared into the water or evaporated into thin air. There's reasoning for a lot of that. I have a real positive understanding of why phenomenon appear and disappear in front of people, and it has to do with a lot of incredible science and the conditions that allow the manifestations to be in our reality. If it moves, the electromagnetic energy or whatever it is that allows it to be visible shifts, and when it shifts, it doesn't give support to the manifestation. So it's like the light disappears because the conditions around have changed from where they were. Doesn't mean that it isn't still there and hasn't moved on. It's just that it's not visible to us anymore because the supporting conditions of the gravity, of the water, of the atmospheric conditions, whatever that is, doesn't support it in our reality any longer. It has moved out of it. So therefore, we're not visible. It's not visible to us. So it was an interesting place here, and it was my first shot that I ever did back in 2001 right here in this spot.
Ye
Old
UFO
store.